Welcome back, class. We're going to continue with our study of the tragedy of Julius Caesar as we're going to finish up Act 3, which, of course, is the climax. We finished up seeing Caesar get assassinated. Now we got to see the aftermath and what's going to happen. So this is all part of the falling action of the play. And we'll review the Act 3 study guide, which is due later today. Puns of the day. How does a soccer player perform magic? They score a hat trick. I know, I kind of messed that up. That was from my son, Tim. Whoops. There we go. Surprisingly, Julius Caesar preferred ranch. Can you believe that? You would have thought he would have gone for his Caesar salad. So our purpose, of course, is to learn how a text can be culturally and historically significant, and we're also going to identify rhetoric. Rhetoric, we studied that back in the fall. So we're trying to gain different perspectives by reading across a variety of text formats and mediums. We're going to interpret and analyze works from a variety of genres for literary, historical, and cultural significance. And we're going to identify the use of rhetoric in a work of literature. So, of course, if we recall here, a quick review, Act 1 was all about who's for Caesar and who's against Caesar. We learned the cultural significance of Billy Shakespeare starting with the commoners, okay? Because in his culture, the common people didn't know how to read very well, and so going to see a play was very important. And so he wanted to connect with the audience because they love Queen Elizabeth I, just like the plebeians love Caesar and his homecoming. And so he wanted to emphasize that this message is for the people. He wants to show the perspective of the people, to connect with them, to emphasize that the people may have a choice if their ruler falls. And so, of course, in Act 1, we found out about the conspiracy, Cassius leading that group, and we learn about Mark Antony and how he is, of course, for Caesar. He's there to help Caesar. In Act 2, we had to figure out, was Brutus for or against Caesar? What was his decision? Because Brutus, remember, is one of Caesar's best friends, but he's also very honorable. So, of course, he chooses to go against Caesar. And we also see a bit of a love story between Brutus and his wife, Portia. And we analyze these two pictures, and we notice that this first picture was a better representation of the text because Brutus will not allow Portia to know the secrets of the conspiracy. And so you see this break, you see that he won't even talk to her. It shows an inequality, where over here it shows their love, it shows there's equality between the two. And so we talked about that before. So that was Act 2. And then in this last act, we started Act 3 is all about Rome in turmoil. All right. Caesar is about to be murdered. And so we read the history.com article and we saw that facts were emphasized. This was a nonfiction article meant to inform. And so what was absent from that article was dialogue. You're not getting various points of view like you do in a play. You're not getting action. You're not getting a narrative. It doesn't tell a story. It gives facts. And so the advantage of this type of medium, the history.com nonfiction article, was that the facts are clear. You know that he was stabbed in the head. You know how many times he was stabbed. You know what happened afterwards. You don't have to ask questions of your friend who might have been watching the play if you weren't sure about something. Okay, but the disadvantage is, well, it's not as entertaining and you're only getting one point of view. So we watched the film version of Act 3. We saw the soothsayer. He warned Julius Caesar. Caesar just spurned him. Then Artemidorus, I call him Crazy Artie, he had that whole letter that he wanted to give to Caesar, but Decius steps in, and really Caesar's like, I don't want to hear any of this. I'm about to be crowned king. And so he makes his way into the Senate. The plan unfolds through the conspiracy as Metellus Cimber, one of the conspirators, kind of pleads for his brother's pardon because he's been jailed. And that's really just a ploy to get closer to Caesar as Brutus and Cassius, both agree with Metellus Cimber. And of course, Caesar can't believe that Brutus's best friend would even go against him in that. And then, of course, Casca lays the first blow on Caesar and so forth. And so when we took a look at that film version, all right, you should have noted a bunch of things. And so you want to make sure you have this in your notes. All right, at the end of the scene one graphic organizer, there's a question. And so what is emphasized in the film? Well, the facial expressions. You get a lot of close-ups of Caesar, of Casca, Cassius, Brutus, all these different characters. right? You could, early on, Publius was another senator who happened to find out about the conspiracy, and he tells Cassius, hey, I know what's going on. And so Cassius is, shaking in his boots. And Publius goes up and talks to Caesar, and we get this kind of close up of Cassius and Brutus on their faces as they look to see whether Caesar found out about it or not. And of course, he didn't. And certainly the action assassination, one of the best shots is the first person point of view, as if you are Caesar. The camera is a little fuzzy, it's a little blurry, it's even shaking a little bit as Caesar's putting his hand out to Brutus. And of course, Brutus spurns him. Okay, so you get the facial expressions and the action. That is what is emphasized in the film. If you were an audience member watching the play unfold on stage, it would be very difficult to feel that same first person point of view. Okay, so the advantage of the film rather than the printed text, obviously, is the emphasis on the facial expression, the emotion, the shock of Caesar when he sees Brutus, Caesar's perspective, as we just talked about, and the emphasis that Antony was not there. If you were watching the play, you may not have even noticed that Mark Antony was kind of escorted out of the Senate hall, or maybe they don't even bring him in. Okay, but with film, the director can zoom in on certain aspects and also foreshadow. It was right to left movement as Caesar was going to enter into the Senate hall. And of course, right to left movement in film indicates that something bad is usually going to happen because it's abnormal to see things from right to left. We read from left to right. And so it emphasizes the facial expressions with close-up shots. It can focus on different aspects and provide action to the words. It portrays the actions with different perspectives, as we talked about, and also music sets the tone and provides the mood. Now, if you go to see a play, usually there is music that can provide that mood, but certainly in a film as well. So, that hit upon some of those learning targets as we were comparing the different texts. All right, so we're going to pause here, and we'll come back with a new video in just a moment.